Hi, this is Tom, the old guy from Delaware. I'd like to talk for a very few minutes about Romney, who should never be elected President of the United States. Romney is a liar. I do not believe he's ever worked a day in his life. I know he's never gotten his hands dirty. If you listen closely the other day, he said, I was a manager. He let that slip out. And that's because that's what he was. I did some research about a month ago into the Bain company, BAIN.com. They've since changed their homepage, and you have to look around to find out what kind of company it really is. What it is a consulting firm, or in more common terms, it is a Wall Street pawn shop. It's where people go that are in a jam and don't know what to do about it. And the kicker is that Bain makes money regardless of the outcome of their efforts with this company, just like a pawn shop. Sometimes you don't have the money to buy back what you put up and got some cash for it. Bain gets a fee. They get paid for doing this, the same way that Newt Gingrich got paid for being a consultant for Fannie Mae. Now, Romney started this with some of his buddies. There's a picture of them with money coming out of their pockets, and they're all excited and happy about the money they made. The fact of the matter is, they're pawnbrokers. There's a team, there's a gang of employees working for them that set about trying to solve the problems of a company that has hired Bain to help them out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Romney was the big shot in charge of Bain. I find it hard to believe that he would become involved in the mundane day-to-day operation of the company other than take home a big paycheck. And as I understand it, he had stock in the company when he and his friends set it up. So they just paid themselves dividends, which are taxed at a much lower rate. Now, the question remains is, where did Romney get the money to invest in this? He says his family didn't leave him any inheritance of any type. I find that hard to believe. You don't, unless he got a job making $100,000 an hour, he had to get the money somewhere. We just don't know where. Now, let me explain this to you in terms everybody can understand. There's three types of firms that make money on what other people do. Bain is a consulting firm. They made money regardless of whether they could save a company or have it go into bankruptcy. They made money either way. So the profit motive really wasn't there. The initiative of the employees that work for Bain, who are good accountants, basically, and they could tell whether a company needed to close stores, consolidate, sell, whatever, to try to save their butt. If it didn't work, Bain said, oh, well, file for bankruptcy. And part of that procedure, of course, is getting rid of people. Most of the time. Sometimes things go well and the company prospers. They follow the advice given by the Bain employees, and got rid of people, consolidated, sold stores, whatever. Number two is called venture capitalists. They've had a couple TV shows in the past about these guys. They're a bunch of wealthy cats that get together and say, you know what, let's go look for something to invest our money in, maybe make a profit. Well, maybe is a long word to them. They have people come to them with an idea, a model, patents perhaps, working models of what they want to do, and they make a presentation. You've seen this in the movies. They make a presentation to these folks and leave them with the paperwork, and then they go home. And the venture capitalists have a ton of people working for them to look through all the paperwork to see if it has merit. If it has merit, they will invest their money into your venture, your business, your idea, your invention. And then everybody either makes it or breaks it. They take the chance. That's what venture capitalists do. The third one of these type firms in the chain is called a hedge fund. A hedge fund is strictly to make money. No question about it. They sometimes allow private investors in, but usually people that have a ton of money to start with. And the hedge fund manager, give you an example of what that's all about. Watch Mad Money, Jim Cramer on CNBC. A lot of people have lost a lot of money watching him, I being one of them, before I decided to go against Cramer's advice and be a contrarian. When he would say a company was going to do great, I'd wait for a while, and then I'd either sell it short or I'd buy another company, and I made some pretty good deals. But Cramer used to be a hedge fund manager, he and his wife. They had a room full of people working for him with their ear to the ground. What's the latest? What's the rumors? What's the news around the world going to affect a certain stock? And they tried to make money either way that the stock market went. They would sell short or they would buy long. Buy long is what you and I do. We buy stock and we hope that the price goes up because we picked a decent company. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. But there's another little thing about the hedge funds that I find particularly disgusting. That is what's called a short sale. A short sale is when a hedge fund borrows ABC stock from the New York Stock Exchange or a humongous brokerage house, and they sell it at today's price, hoping that the stock goes down in price, so when the time comes for them to replace the stock that they borrowed, they buy it back at a much cheaper price, and the difference is their profit. Now, the king of short sellers is a man named George Soros. He was thrown out of the United Kingdom, and I suspect he was told, don't even try to come back again. What George Soros did in England was he sold the British pound short, the money exchange. And he has billions of dollars. Now, you've all heard about how the stock market get spooked because of something that happened, and it'll either go up or go down, depending on what the news is. Well, Soros played this like a nice piano. He would sell a stock short a couple $100,000 worth of the stock, maybe a half a million. And then he would do it again. And people would say, uh-oh, what's going on here? Somebody's unloading a lot of the stock. Well, no, they weren't. Soros was borrowing the stock from a brokerage house and selling it short. And then when the British pound went down and down and down and down, he bought it back and made $1 billion. But he almost destroyed the Bank of England. Now, what I find to be really curious is that several years ago, the Securities Exchange Commission did away with a ruling called the uptick rule. That was put into place after the stock market crash of 1929. Now, I'm getting a little long and wordy about this. I hope you bear with me and that gives you some information. The stock market in 1929 happened because people bought stock on margin. You can buy stock today on margin, but there's limitations. If you put up 15% of the price of the stock, you can buy whatever you want to buy, but you have to pay within a certain amount of time. Now, what people did then was to sell the stock as it was going up like crazy, and they would use the proceeds from the sale not to pay off the original investment from the first stock. They invested it all in a margin of another stock, which kept going up and up. So the original stock was never paid for. So everything beyond that was all paper profits. And the day came due when the stock market went down, and the stockbroker said, okay, it's time to pay off your accounts. It's time to make your accounts whole by paying for the stock. Well, no one had the money because the $1,000 that they invested is now $100,000, and nobody had the money to pay for the stock, and it went bust. They also had a lot of people selling stock short. The big shots, who they make money either way, going and coming. The big shots were selling stock short like crazy as they saw the market reach its peak in 29. So the SEC put a rule in place that said it was an uptick rule. If you sell a stock short, you can't sell more of that stock short until the price goes up a bit. I don't remember what the number was, how much, what percentage, whatever. But it had to be that the stock was coming back up in price. It wasn't just a continual spiral down into the toilet. Well, about 3 years ago or so, the SEC did away with that rule. They stopped it. No longer do you have an uptick rule when you sell stock short. So people like George Soros, man, they're smacking their lips. And they said, super, they can destroy a company. They can put a company out of business in a minute. All they have to do is to sell their stock short, the next day sell more of it short, and keep on doing that, and the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, those guys running around in circles, they'll say to themselves, hey, something's going on with such and such. Someone's selling the hell out of that stock. What's going on? And then they look at their holdings, mutual funds, whatever it might be, and say, you know, we better bail out before we get caught in a real jam. And they start to bail out, which of course makes the stock go down even more. And the big shots wait till the dust settles and they buy the stock back to give back their borrowed stock to begin with, and they make millions. So when I first wanted to start buying stocks, was back in the 80s, a friend of mine was a branch manager of a local bank. His sister was an account manager with another bank's, well, I can name it, I guess, Wilmington Trust. They had a stock brokerage department. And he asked his sister if she would tell me about investing in stock. And I called her up and she said, first thing I'm going to tell you is the only way you can make money in the stock market is if you're really lucky. Because the big boys are going to make the money whether the stock market goes up or the stock market goes down. And you don't have a chance. They can outspend you and they can maneuver the average person in a second. And that was one of the reasons that led me to stop buying mutual funds. Because you're at the mercy of these guys in a mutual fund. You're also at the mercy of the manager of the mutual fund. And it seems that every time there's a new manager brought in, he sells everything out and starts with a clean slate. Well, guess what? You and I are in there in the mutual fund thinking everything's safe and sound, and all of a sudden you find out you've lost $8,000 or $10,000, and you ask why, and it's because the new manager wanted to start afresh, so he sold everything and started over again. Wait a minute. Why didn't you tell me you were going to get a new manager and that was what his plan was going to be so that I could sell before he sold out in mass and caused the stock to drop like a stone, whatever stock he owned in the mutual fund. So you really can't win. But anyway, back to Romney. He's a lying son of a bitch. I challenge him to prove to me that he ever had dirt under his fingernails and that he ever wore a pair of jeans in real life. Because anybody that has to learn how to talk like a conservative, in my book, it's too late. If you have to learn, it's like learning to get out of the way of a train coming down the tracks towards you. If you have to learn it, it's too late, buddy. You're in trouble. And this guy is an elitist. He's like a John Kerry, only he's not as goofy looking as Kerry. But you just think of John Kerry when you think of old Willard Mitt Romney. He's no better than John Kerry. He's a liar and he's a sneak because he won't admit what he really did. Thank you for listening. I hope it sheds some light on what's going on with the people running for office to run our country. Thank you.